and give a warm Hot Springs welcome to Miss Veronica Taylor.
Awesome. You guys, thank you so much. That was really nice of you to, you've been walking around all day to have to stand up. Just sit and relax. We have, how's this? Good? I'm gonna stand if you don't mind a little, because then I can see everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the panel. Jessie and I are here to, Jessie's fielding your questions. You may know her from
Running Pokemon events.
yeah, Pokemon events. Does anyone know Jessie already?
I should.
Yes? Well, if you don't, you should talk to her after this. Pokemon events, tournaments, etc. You are running with the mic too while we're, so if you have questions, you can just kind of raise your hand. This is a question and answer. You have questions, I might have a few. I hopefully will have a lot of answers. So basically it's whatever you guys want to talk about. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me in your town. Hot Springs is incredible. I've had a wonderful, magical time here and met so many amazing people, and most of you in this room I've met and gotten a chance to talk to over this weekend, so thank you so much. It's been incredible. Okay, so now you can ask questions. Yes? Is that a giant eye on your head?
Yes.
I like that.
How did you get your start as a voice actress? Or if somebody wanted to get into that field, what do you recommend?
Sure, how does someone start voice acting? I've been an actor since I was 5. That's when I decided I wanted to be an actor. And because of that, I was in every school play I could be in. I played soccer, I took dance. I went to college and got a bachelor's in acting, and I went to grad school and got a master's in acting. I toured the country with quite a few acting companies. I moved to New York City, and really there I was recommended by an acting coach for an audition for an anime. And that's how I booked that, and then they said, well, can you audition for this? And it kind of moved its way along from there. I think the best way to get involved in any of the arts, if you're a musician or an actor or a singer, an artist, is to really get as much education as you possibly can on what you are interested in. If you want to be an actor, take acting. Get jobs that keep you with people who are creative, who you might be able to network with and meet. You want to make a demo that showcases maybe about a minute of the work that you do, your talent, so that you're able to send that out. I think it's best to have someone help you with the demo rather than recording it in your house, so that it sounds like you actually had the jobs that you have put on your demo. And then networking is really the way to go, because you never know who can recommend you for a job. Being at a convention is a great place to meet people who are like, oh, I'm an animator, I need someone to do a voice for my thing, and you can start here and meet a lot of people. You just never know. So maybe making a business card is a good idea. Yeah, you're welcome. Good luck.
Are you keeping up with the Redskins game?
And you know what? I haven't been following any football this season so far, but I am a Redskins fan. I'm a Red Sox fan, so pretty busy with that.
Nice.
Yeah, are you a Redskins fan too?
No, I saw that you were, and I saw they had a lead over the Packers.
Oh, awesome. No, you know, I've been really busy, and especially when I'm at a convention, I kind of lose track of many things happening outside of here. But yeah, I'm definitely all for the Skins, that's for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
Do you have any nerdy passions?
Nerdy passions. Well, I am a nerd, I suppose, but I'm not as nerdy as I should. I'm more nerdy because I don't really know that much that I should know. Like, I haven't seen most of the new Marvel movies that have come out, or things that really make you an awesome nerd. I'm like the real nerd. I just like watch a lot of PBS, and that's like cool in my family. What would a nerdy passion be?
Anything from video games to certain readings, books.
Yeah, I record a lot of audiobooks, so I love children's books. That's probably not nerdy at all, but I really love YA category, that because I love the imagination that's incorporated into children's books, because a lot of adult books are so real, and we have so much reality that I like to kind of escape into things. I do watch a lot of murder mystery things on PBS, and those I can escape into the beautiful sets and all of that. That's, you know, different than the apartment I live in. So, yeah, I don't play any video games. I don't have any time for that. I work on a lot, but I never really get a chance to play them. See, I'm a real nerd, for real.
Since you voiced Ash, his mom, and May, is it weird, like, talking to yourself? Did you have to do that, or were they all recorded separately?
So when you are recording something that's already finished, Pokemon was finished in Japan before it came to America. So when you are dubbing something, which means fitting the lip flap, you do all of the lines for one character and then all for the next. When I was working on Ninja Turtles or other shows that I work on now, when it's prelay, which means you record first and it's drawn later, then for those, you record in order. So if you're having a scene with yourself in a prelay show, you record those lines back to back. In Pokemon, I would do all of Ash's lines first and then May, so then I could actually talk to myself. That was a luxury I had. Normally when I go in to record most jobs, I don't hear any of the voices that surround my lines. So at least with that I could hear and like talk and listen. So it's not weird at all. That was kind of nice, if I do say so myself. But yeah, it's not weird at all. It's not confusing. And usually when you create a character, you figure out who the whole character is, even if it's just the voice, because you know, where do they hold their energy? How do they stand? Ash is kind of a grounded person. Amelia from Slayers is kind of up here, so I find I stand differently at the mic when I'm recording them, but it's easy if I know who they are, I can switch voices. When I'm doing an audiobook, I've already kind of created the characters so I can keep the voices separate as I'm flipping around back and forth for that. But it's not so bad.
What's the new anime about?
New anime?
Ari?
Oh, Aria. Aria is, Right Stuff is putting that out. I don't know, does anyone know about that? They did a Kickstarter for it, and
it's based on a manga. I think it's about like they're in like a new version of Venice.
that's right,
I
New
read that manga
Venezia.
as a kid.
Did you?
Yeah, I
It's
have it.
very beautiful, and I was saying it's very flowing because it's all on the water. They're training to be gondoliers,
Yeah.
and so a lot of it is just, it's very beautiful. I had the chance to actually be in Venice this summer, and it's a lot like Aria. It's a little magical thing. It's calming, so it's not a action adventure, but it's beautiful. I play Akari, and she's kind of the main character. She's come to this new planet and is kind of figuring her life out. So yeah, we've just finished, the first season is out, and we're working on the second season now. It's lovely.
So, do you actually watch the shows that you voice act in, or do you just voice act?
Some of them I have, like I watched a lot of Pokemon on Saturday mornings and in the morning before school when my daughter was little. I have watched some. If it was on TV, I usually did watch it. If I have to find it online, I usually don't watch it, only because I'm doing something else. But if I can have the TV on and it's playing, like I do watch Pokemon sometimes when it was on Boomerang, the seasons that I was in, I could like, catch one every now and then. But a lot of stuff like video games I work on, I never see it. Sometimes I work on a show, and like with Fire Emblem Heroes recently, with that, I never knew what the show was actually called. And then I saw, I think on Twitter something, and someone was saying I was in it, and I was like, am I? You know, because I didn't even know the name of it. So for that kind of thing, I kind of, some shows I find out about later. A lot of video games, they keep it secret till the bitter end. So anyway, video games I never get a chance to see. I have only a DS, so that's how nerdy I am. I'm really outdated, but I can still play my Professor Layton's on it. And the little Pokemon Red. So thank you very much. So yeah, some things I see and some I don't see. Usually I'm preparing for something else, and I don't get a chance to watch what I've been on. Oh yes?
Do you have a favorite Pokemon?
Do I have a favorite Pokemon?
You can't say Pikachu.
It is Pikachu! I spent so much time with
Besides
Pikachu.
Pikachu.
I know, I could actually watch a whole episode and just listen to Pikachu and be so perfectly content. It's amazing what an actress can do with one word, I think. The emotion that's conveyed. I am the biggest Pikachu fan. I've recently decided Charizard probably because living in New York and Los Angeles, if I could fly places, if I can't have a magic carpet, I could go with a Charizard. And that's just purely practical, not because of the damage I could do in a battle or anything.
Did you ever actually watch the Pokemon movie that you were in with Ash, and did you actually feel any emotion to it?
I
That's the
have
first
seen
one.
all of the 8 movies that I was in. And yeah, I've felt emotion playing the moments. And also, I recently saw the first movie again in a, one of the movie theaters was showing it. It was great because in the beginning, when you all were little, you would go into the movie theater when Pokemon first opened, and it looked like the whole theater was empty. But then if you looked from the other end, you realized it was all children whose heads didn't reach the back of the seats. So when I went recently, all those little children were big children, and I could see that the whole place was full. And so it was a really neat experience. Plus to have everyone shouting out the lines like it was Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was incredibly moving in and of itself, outside of the content of the movie. But I do think there's something that has bonded us all to Pokemon that's deeper than like what cards you collect or what games you play. There's some kind of universal truths I think that we've all absorbed. And one of them is that what we're willing to do for our friends. And that brings me to tears just thinking about it, how as children we were able to see that in a movie, that's a big theme. And that we could all watch that and absorb something from it. And I mean, look at the incredible people in this room right now. It's amazing, and Pokemon has played a part in all of us being who we are right now. And those really emotional moments, I think, are also part of that. What is your shirt? Is that a chicken?
Yeah, it's a Family Guy Star Wars.
Oh, something dark side. Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
Right.
with the,
Oh, I get it,
chicken
yeah.
was Boba Fett.
Funny. I said, yeah, okay, get it.
Question I had,
Yes.
a lot of times in voice acting, and whether it's video games or anime, you get strange direction or vocal directions
Sure.
for all sorts of sounds. What's the weirdest one that you've ever come across?
Oh, the weirdest direction?
Yes.
Well, it's weird anyway when you're going to work and you're playing like a chicken or a sheep or stuff like that. A lot of times it's really about making it as real as possible. I had an audition for a job I didn't get that was animals who were sick and they were choking and coughing. And that was a weird audition to have to be like a giraffe with a sore throat who was choking on something, or like a pig, and you have to figure out like, you know, if you have a very long neck, you know, it could be here, or you know, like you're figuring out where you hold all those sounds, and so all of that stuff, it's creating characters, is kind of creating these weird images in your mind, and then you have to kind of see yourself as that. When you're dubbing something, you can see who you are right in front of you, so you can kind of fill that in. But when you're auditioning for something that doesn't exist, it's all in your head, which is why you should never allow anyone in the booth to videotape you, or record you while you are recording something, because it's hopefully not who you are, but it's you becoming some blobby thing, you know? So I think not necessarily direction, but like what I've had to become and how I have to think about it is just, and it's all just in my head, really. Yeah, it's all very weird, definitely.
Fun stuff that can come out of just the script.
Yeah, I think so. And when you're allowed to experiment a little bit, so often things are rushed. You don't have a lot of time. You get in to work on something and you just start. And so you have to be able to pull in your imagination and your skill, your training, to kind of make it all happen in a second. That's the craziest thing, I think, is that you don't have a lot of time to prepare for anything. And so, which is a good thing and a bad thing. You know, sometimes I think for any of you, if you have to write a paper for school, if you have a month, sometimes you still do it the length before, right? So sometimes you need a shorter deadline to be able to just start working on it. So maybe if you have a week, then you start doing your outline on the first day. If you have a month, you still wait. So for me, it's just as well that I don't have a lot of time to prepare. When I record an audiobook, I always read through and I prepare the characters. When I have an audition, I look up the show, I figure out what the world of this is, but then I just kind of jump in.
Thanks.
When you're voicing for a dub, do you often find times where you have to change the script just to help match the lip sync, or basically like you're voicing the lips that are on the screen?
Yeah, sometimes, like when we were working on Cubics, for instance, it was first done in Korea. And I don't speak Korean, but what I learned was that the Korean language has an open sound at the end of many sentences. So we did have to adapt the script in the booth to change some small words or whatever to make that openness at the end. So things like that. Some shows are more, the script is more protected. Like when it's on TV, for instance, Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or One Piece, those shows were very strictly written and you couldn't change anything at all because they'd already gone through all the broadcasting, whatever, they've been checked off so that this is all allowed, so you couldn't change anything. But other things, like when I was working on Slayers, they were adapted but not as strict to the lip flap, so you would have to change some stuff. All of that stuff is, you're still working on an hourly basis, so they want you to get in and get out. So it's not like, I just want to try this, let me just see. There's never much time for that, but little bits of things.
Do you feel a close connection to the characters you voice?
I definitely do. I try to, even characters that maybe are not as likable as others, or that I can't say that I don't like as much, because I pretty much do like everything that I work on. And I do find something, because you connect, even when you're drawing something, when you're acting something, you connect it to a part of yourself. And so I do feel closely connected. I would say Ash most of all, because I played him for 8 years, and I got to really be him more than most characters I play. So yeah, I definitely feel connected.
While you were playing Ash Ketchum, you obviously got to see some of the show, as you said. Is there any episode that stands out to you?
Well, they all do in terms of like the great journey that we were on, but the first episode is my favorite because I think in that one we all kind of got to see what this world was going to be, and none of us knew what to expect. So the first one's definitely my favorite overall. Plus we did that many times. And because we had to go back in and tweak things, and because they didn't know what they wanted, so things were changed. And also in the beginning we said Pokemon, and they changed it, so we had to go back and re-record Pokemon through everything. So that we went over those first episodes a lot for that stuff. I think it still says, I'm gonna be a Pokemon trainer. I think he still says that in the beginning. Well, I'm not sure. My Pokemon.
Now he says master.
What's that?
So I think now he says master.
Oh, I don't know. I'm in the first 8 years and I haven't seen it since we were replaced.
I don't blame you.
So I have no idea.
The old stuff's better.
It is.
Well, I'm gonna say yes because I was in it and I loved it. So otherwise, I just haven't seen it. When Pokemon USA took the show, they replaced everyone who had been working on it, writers, directors, actors, and we didn't have a choice to go on with it. So it was, I would say, traumatic. And so I'm not able to watch the show with like those familiar faces and different voices. I'm just not mature enough to handle it, so I kind of stay away from it. But I follow what's happening because people fill me in. I miss it a lot because I love Pokemon, but that's the way it is, man. Yeah.
So when you're recording,
Yeah.
do you record with other voice actors typically, or is it you recording one-on-one? How does that work?
Well, when you're dubbing something, you're always in the booth by yourself. And I think that's a time management and a budget management type thing, decision that they make. I think in Japan, when they work on Pokemon, I think it's already drawn, but they are all in the booth together for that. I've never been there, that's what I've heard. In America, whenever you're dubbing something, you're always in by yourself. For a lot of other cartoons that are pre-laid that I work on, I'm still recording by myself. Sometimes when I worked on Astro Blast, 2 of us were in the booth together in New York. 3 people were in the booth in Boston, and our director was phoning in from LA. So that was all kind of, when I work on Mophie, I recorded that when I lived in New York and in LA, and I'm by myself, but I like Skype in with the director and engineer when I work in my studio in LA for that. And that's animated in Italy, and it's a Japanese character. So we kind of span the globe with that in an interesting way. But oftentimes, I'm alone. We can talk about that later. It's really, I don't enjoy that, but at least I like to get out to a studio where at least I'm with an other person. Welcome to the Wayne is the same. I record that in LA, there's a director there. Sometimes the director's in New York also, but at least I'm out, I say hi to people when I go into work. At home, I just go into my closet. Yes, it's sad, okay? It's sad. It's so lonely. But I'm really in my imagination a lot, which is not a bad place to live. It's kind of a fun place. Anyway, more on that later.
You said you get paid by the hour, you don't get a lump sum?
On a lot of jobs, it's an hourly thing. Sometimes you, there's some, yeah, a lot of that is. It depends on the show. With Pokemon, we were booked by the hour, and that was that.
No overtime?
No residuals, nothing like that. Some jobs, like a video game, they have you for a 4-hour time block, so they'll use it or not use that amount of time, but you get paid a fee for those 4 hours. Other jobs, it just all depends on all of that. For an audiobook, you get paid per finished hour. So for instance, I have some audiobooks here. This book is like 6 hours, and so you get paid for 6 hours. But if it takes you 12 hours to record it, if it took you, let's say 6 hours to read the book, to prep it, and then 12 hours to record, you still only get paid for the 6 hours. So that's how it all kind of works out. So you want to be a good reader, because it's the time it takes to do pickups and things that dock your time. Can't take that many breaks, so you just sit down and just crank through. Yeah, it's a little brutal, actually. I love recording audiobooks, but it's a little brutal for that. To have to sit still and kind of have emotion but not move because you don't want anything to make noise. It's really, and by this I mean my clothes, just so. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
What was your initial impression of Ash Ketchum versus how you viewed him, I guess, when you guys left the show?
My initial impression of Ash Ketchum versus how I view him now, or at the end of season 8. That no one's ever asked me that question, and I do very clearly remember going in and auditioning. I auditioned for a lot of things that I don't remember, but that, the animation style and the color of it and just the energy struck me, and I want every job I audition for, but that one especially, I really was hoping I got cast in that. I had no idea what the show was about. That was 1998, so we didn't really have the internet to look everything up on and find out something, or it's not something I did. And so I think my idea of him has grew along with the show, in terms of that he was a kid who just was positive and out. He was a 10-year-old kid just going for his dream. And then on the way, figuring out that he could still go for his dream and still help his friend get their dream. And also learn and take a side trip to do something else and kind of come back. And I think he matured along the way. As we all know, he's still 10. But still, that kind of who he is a better person than who he began. And I feel like I also took that journey as well. I learned so much about myself, about other human beings, about how important it is to be positive and how linked we are to one another, even though we're so alone. And I do speak for myself mostly in that, but we all are on our journey alone. And then we pick up people along the way, and sometimes we drop them off. Sometimes we meet back up with them. But it influenced my life in such a way that I think of him and me together sometimes, although he's quite different than I am. I do wear a baseball hat. But my daughter was born at the end of the first season. So and that changed my life too. And then to have my own little traveling companion, like Ash, do you know what I mean? It's been an incredible journey. My daughter has gotten older. I have not, and neither has Ash. So, yes.
Okay, so you mentioned being 10 for 8 years. Do you have your own personal reasoning in your head on why he never aged, even though it's obvious he should have?
Well, I do. I mean, the problem with Pokemon is that chronologically it goes on from battle to battle. So you can say, like, you've had this many battles and there's only 365 days in the year, so I think we've passed a year. But ultimately, I think Ash represents the 10-year-old inside all of us. That moment in our life that anything is possible, where we're all figuring out who we want to be when we grow up. We don't have many chores, we don't have a lot of homework. There's still a time when you're not supposed to go out of the house without telling your mom where you're going, and yet Ash could. And so when we as adults come back, we can get back in touch with that 10-year-old and remember, where was I headed? You know, and you can kind of reconnect with that. So I think it's important that he stays 10 and he represents that for us, because as adults, sometimes we lose track. As kids, sometimes we lose track. You forget, and now with how connected we are on social media and YouTube and all these things that keep showing so much to us of kind of like, who are we supposed to be? Ash reminds us that it's about who we are and kind of where we're going, and he heads on that path, you know? So I think it's important that he stays 10. He doesn't have a crush on anyone, he's on his own, you know?
We're going to inform you that was noticed when he's allegedly 14, but he looks like he's 8.
Oh, really? So,
Yeah.
like me too, with a little plastic surgery. We're all going that way, I think, darling. I didn't know that, actually. I'm gonna just let that go for now, and that's like, I think we've hit the line between original Pokemon now and what's come after. Then if it's changed that much, then that's a whole nother ball game, or football game, whatever you want to. Sporting event. So yeah, I mean, for me, he's every man. We all hook into his journey because we understand it. That's too bad if he's actually growing up. It might as well be a new show, I guess.
It feels that way, yeah.
Yeah, does it?
Yeah.
All right, well.
It's like a really weird Power Ranger crossover.
Yeah.
Is it? Power Rangers are so in right now. I can see why they would have combined it. Like, why not? But
not really weird.
Weird elevators and stuff.
elevators?
Yeah, they got a really big elevator where they do their transformation into their outfit.
Oh,
Elevator.
wow.
Elevator.
Interesting. Elevators. Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna write a show, and then let's just watch that instead. This is like too weird. Plus, then you feel like, oh my god. Well, I actually live in an apartment building that has an elevator, so I'm relating to this new show a lot. Other than that, I don't know. All right, we'll figure this out later. This is gonna be something I think I'll bring a big couch and we can have a therapy session about it. So, we don't have enough time for that now. Yes.
Does your daughter make you do an Ash Ketchum voice ever?
My daughter does not make me do Ash Ketchum. In fact, she says, stop doing that. There is no so she and I do a lot of weird accents and things, but we don't like, oh, could you get me the groceries? Where's my list? Like, we're not walking around the house doing things like that, or like, oh, I can't find it, get it yourself. You know, like, there's nothing like that happening, but we try to blend in whatever country we're in or what area we're in to work on our accents. So that we do, and I always do accents at an inappropriate time. So it never fails that if I'm trying out my, doing some loud Australian thing and there's a group of Australians behind me or something like this where it's just embarrassing and then someone might think I'm making fun of them when I'm not. I'm just trying to be like, cool. So yeah, she never wants me to do Ash's voice at all. Nor would I be like, don't forget your underwear. Which I should, because she's in college. That would be a better thing to do. Note to self. So far, no, things like that. Yes.
What did you think after everything Ash went through with his original hat when they just gave him a new one in advance?
Oh yeah, the whole outfit change. I think I never actually thought about it. I love that original hat and the whole original outfit. I like the colors, all of that. And he saved up all those box tops or whatever to get that hat. So, to just switch it out. What was it exactly?
100 postcards.
Postcards, you had to mail them in.
Yeah.
In the old days, you had to do stuff like that. Like if you wanted this is before my time, but the Dick Tracy watch or, stuff like that, you always had to send stuff in. Does anybody watch, listen to any of the old radio programs that are on? So with those, at the end of some of them, they say, oh, send in whatever, and you can get your decoder ring or your, whatever. So I think what's cool about that is that it's such a throwback to old times, or on the back of the cereal box, you had to mail stuff in. Anyway, but I never thought about it. I was just kind of like, oh, he's got a new outfit, and I went with it. But I haven't thought about that till now, really. I think I just prefer the original. But I wasn't against it. I mean, it's about time he got a new outfit, like washed his clothes. They never go to a laundromat. You never see his mother washing anything, so I think he probably needed a new outfit. I just say.
He had a squirrel, that's perfect.
Hey, that's a good point. And they did fall in the lake every now and then and stuff. There were a couple bathing suit episodes. So yeah, maybe they washed their clothes, but he probably needed it. Didn't that next outfit have more pockets in the pants too?
Yeah.
Everybody needs that. Yes?
Traveling the convention circuit like you do, have you ever found yourself starstruck when you meet another celebrity? And if so, who?
So my family, I come from a family of actors, so when you understand that actors are just like normal people who are so lucky to have a job, and especially people who, like myself, who are lucky that anyone has ever even watched anything that I've done, I really like talking to people about the business, and I was just speaking with, Julian, I can't remember his last name from last weekend. It's such a bad example, but he's talking about his son who's doing Harry Potter and the Cursed Child in London and then on Broadway, and we were just talking about the business, and that kind of stuff that's what I like, because I talk to my parents about that, I talk to their friends about that. Who's the most starstruck? I got to meet Corinne Orr and Peter Fernandez, who played Speed Racer and Trixie, and that was an incredible moment for me. I got to meet Paul Rubens, who's Pee Wee Herman, and just people who, especially for Paul Rubens, his imagination and how he's created these crazy things that appeal to people of all ages, I really admire that. So those are some people that I just, I think is pretty cool. I also am a really big Star Trek Next Generation fan, and I get to hang out with that cast a lot. So that's pretty cool for me. I I can't say I was starstruck in case anyone ever sees this, but it's pretty cool. But also to find out how great people really are, that's the best thing.
What was it like casting Ash, like a boy voice? Like, what was it like?
Being Ash was the greatest role of my life because I've always played sports. I do a lot of stage combat. I was in the Batman stunt show at Six Flags Great Adventure before that. And so like, I've always been really active, but not much of my roles were like that. I played Jim Hawkins on stage, and that was really exciting to be a boy. So to be a boy in a cartoon where you get to go and have battles and all of this is, in 1998, there weren't that many really strong girl characters. There are more now, but to be able to have that was great. I don't think I ever thought like, oh, today I'm gonna be a boy, but it's just like who Ash is was, I don't know, it was very fulfilling. But I don't ever think, I play a lot of boy roles and I don't ever think like, okay, now I'm a boy. It's all the same, it all comes from the same place. And I do think being able to play characters, one thing I like about being an actor is you get to step into other people's shoes. You have more empathy because you understand people, because you have to be them. And that's helped me as a human being, you know, certainly. But I don't necessarily think of people only as boys and girls, you know, in terms of that. So it was awesome, though. Did you have a question? Do you want to tell me your question? How can I do Ash's voice? So all of us have the capability of doing so many different voices. So you can put your voice way up here. You can get kind of in here, or you can drop it really far down. Ash's voice is back in here. So he's like, and you know his voice changed during the show, but basically he's here. So I kind of get it back in here and, you know, squeeze it around. It's hard to breathe when you do Ash's voice. So, because you're just really squeezing the sound. Oh, you're up here or something, or it's breathy. That's easier because breath is coming out. You want to make sure that your vocal choices involve breathing, because you don't want to, you know, pass out or something. But that's how I kind of put Ash there. That's kind of universal ashy sound.
You mentioned, like, you know, how you felt a really close connection to Ash, and I was wondering, I know you're an actor, but do you ever consider doing a memoir where you talked about that? Because then I would love to read that.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Nope, I hadn't thought about that.
You should.
My life does not seem that interesting, but what I would love to talk about is, if I were to write a book, what I would love to write about is what I've learned from all of you coming to conventions. I've learned so much about the bigger message, I think, of Pokemon, and kind of as, in that sense, it's a handbook on being a Pokemon trainer, because all of us are, and how we approach life and how we are better neighbors and friends and things like that. That's kind of where I would rather write about that than myself. I'm not sure if I could be as introspective to write something. I think all of us in this room have gone through a lot. At any age, you can see where trouble has come and how you've come out of it. And I do think some of the messages of Pokemon have helped pull me out of really low times. And certainly, I don't know that I would want to write so much about that, but I do think we all have something to offer each other in terms of, you know, there's a way to get through this, and how can we help each other to get through it? Because when you're happy, that's pretty great, but then you know at some point it's going to go pear-shaped, as they say. So, but certainly Pokemon and talking to people about it has helped me get through a lot. So I would probably write about that more than my personal experiences. Maybe would you read that too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. Yes.
Hi, I was wondering, especially working with 4 kids, if you had any kind of funny stories about like censorship And what your opinion was on jelly donuts?
So, you know what? We didn't have any say on anything. As far as censorship goes, whatever didn't get made, we never saw. And the only reason I know some things didn't get made is that people at conventions have told me that. There was a lot of, with standards and practices in broadcasting, there was a lot that couldn't be shown or had to, it just very specifically had to adhere to those guidelines. Like with One Piece, people always talk about how much they hate 4Kids because they edited so much. But I look at it the other way, like how lucky are we that we even saw it? Because that's a show that never should have been on Saturday morning, you know, at all. But, you know, I personally don't think kids need to see guns or violence or people smoking or, you know, which are the things that were edited out of that, for instance. I think it's too bad that when Pokemon started, I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I guess they thought no one would know what sushi was. And so they called it a jelly donut or a hamburger, which is wacky because now everybody eats sushi. But in 1998, I hadn't even had sushi then. And so while I was working on this show was when I first ate it, actually, because it just wasn't around. Now you go to the grocery store and you can get it, you know? So, so I think what's pretty cool is that everyone's equally angry about that, and I think it's a good talking topic. So that's great. But otherwise, we didn't, there wasn't a lot of funny stuff that happened because seriously, we worked really hard. Like you would go in, get handed the script, maybe say like, hey, how's it going? And get in the booth and start working. We didn't really have a lot of time to hang around. Or say like, oh, I'm thinking of this other idea, can we try this, whatever. It was just like, let's get this done and get the next actor in. So it was certainly fun to work on, but not funny to work on. Like that. I admire what 4Kids was able to do to get so much out. My favorite show to work on was Fighting Foodons. I don't know if any of you ever saw that. I loved that show so much and wish that it went on because it was so funny. And then that was one of those things that I was disappointed that it didn't get a second season. But for the most part, everybody who worked there was really committed to it. So it was great to go into work. And then we all just enjoyed it. But it wasn't really funny. Does that answer your question? Did you want more, like a funny story?
No, just, I guess just your general, you kind of touched on what your opinion is about censorship and like answering stuff.
Yeah, some things, I think that's why there's a time and a place for every cartoon, and some ages, you might as well wait to watch something till later when you can really appreciate it, and there's other stuff that is better for when you're smaller. But I am still small, so I like stuff that doesn't have a lot of violence.
What did you ever play like Pokemon voices or what?
Yeah, I did Goldeen and Diglett and gosh, I think a couple other ones too, and other characters that came and went and things. In that case, that was like, oh, why don't you just do this while you're here? Or the smaller characters, we just, that was kind of thrown at you. One character, I did a whole episode and he had an Irish accent, and then they decided they didn't want the accent, so they got someone else to do it. So sometimes you don't find out till the episode comes out that you're not the character anymore. Yeah.
What was your Irish accent like?
All right. He was probably around here, kind of like, oh Ash, would you like to come over today?
Something like that. I mean, obviously, you think they should have kept that, right? I mean, I don't know, it was probably something like that. Who knows? There's been many, many voices between then and now, so. That's standard Irish there, yeah. You there, boy.
Yeah, earlier you were mentioning about how to get started in voice acting. Compared to back then, do you find it easier with all the technology, with everything else that's involved? Do you find it easier or harder to book work?
I think it's definitely harder. I also recently moved to LA, so it's like my career started over again, so it's definitely harder. I think now there's an influx of other, well, let's just say that wages have not gone up and wages have definitely gone down. And there's such an influx of people cutting their budgets and other people who are willing to work for less. And so a lot of commercials now are going non-union. And so they're finding people from other places, and I think it's definitely harder to get work. There's also, in LA, there's so much work, there's so much animation, but it's so hard to book it. And now look at all these animated movies, all these really big name stars are coming in to do it. I mean, even look at the Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin. They luckily used Jim Cummings for Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, which was the wisest thing they ever could have done, but they're stars for the rest of them. You know, instead of people who've been doing those for Winnie the Pooh cartoons for a long time. So when the original Winnie the Pooh actors passed away, someone replaced them, and that person has been doing them forever. And those people were not cast in this movie, which was so important. So, for instance, big names are coming in, and I don't know how many people go to an animated movie because a big star is in it, but Sherlock Gnomes, I just watched that on the plane. That's all big actors. You know, there's barely any people who really do like voice work. You know, so I think it's definitely harder, and it's getting harder. It's even hard to be on Broadway if you're not a big film star now. They bring all those people, quote those people, you know, it's nothing. It's just like when you're casting something for their name, that's why the most ridiculous thing is people say, oh, you know what, you're not gonna get cast in a cartoon unless you have a lot of Twitter followers. I mean, how dumb is that? But that's a thing now, that if it's between two people, they're gonna take the person who has more followers because you can free advertise for them. That's a terrible thing, but follow me. So, but you know, like, but I mean, seriously though, it's surfacey, and how can anyone say like, oh my God, please follow me so that, like my pictures, and don't have anything else going on in your life, just look what's happening in my life. I mean, that's ridiculous. We should all be living our life and then check in with people from, you know, now and again. Anyway, the business is weird now, and it's a struggle to figure out how to navigate through it in a, I guess, the sanest way. Because I love that we can be connected through social media, but I don't like that weird stuff that's so fake. And then you have people buying followers and all that stuff. Who cares? You can have 5 people following you and you have a lot of good things to say, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Anyway, enough. I'm off the soapbox. Yes, things are more difficult now than they used to be, I think.
As an adult, do you have an inner child moment where you get excited over everything?
I live in my inner child moment. I am totally, like, if my house could be just like bunting and action figures and like glitter, I would live there. It's kind of that way now, but with piles of paper that need to be filed, which are my grown-up things. But I really, I prefer to live in that, like, what's possible, instead of like, oh my God, this is horrible, you know? And so I do tend to I constantly have ideas about things, and I don't know what I'm doing with them necessarily, but it helps inform my work. I'm always listening to NPR and getting stories from weird things that are happening. I was just watching about these killer whales that came into near South Africa before I came here that are eating those they're sharks that have 7 fins that are like the most prehistoric sharks swimming around, and they're killing them and like that kind of stuff. So I'm always learning about weird, disparate things, and that it helps inform kind of who I am. I don't know if it makes me a better person to be around, but at least it kind of helps me to be interested. I like to learn, and that's a kid thing. I think when we get older, we stop loving learning, and I think it's really important to be learning all the time. We have so much to stay informed about, but you also have to remember what's important, like our Earth, you know, things like that. So yeah, every moment, I think, is my inner child. And then now, outer child.
Me again.
Yes, hi.
So, at every one of these things I've gone to, I've asked the person, why are you so awesome? But we already know why you're so awesome, so.
That's, I paid him to say that too. Thank you. Jackson and yeah.
So, but I just wanted to point out that you are the very best, like no one ever was.
You're the best too. And it's been awesome awesome spending time with you this weekend. You and you and you.
Thank you, seriously. Did you say Pokemon Romper?
Yeah, that's what I was like, yeah, I see.
Note to self. I got another. Luckily, I'm recording this too. That's a good idea. I'm glad I thought of that.
That's yours.
No. I'll credit you. Yes?
So I was wondering, since I know you do voice acting a lot and everything, have you ever strained your voice so much that you lost your voice and weren't able to record for a while?
I have, actually. Oddly enough, I had a vocal hemorrhage about 2 years ago, and I don't know how it happened because I wasn't doing any screaming or anything, but I think it was the dryness of where I was. I was in Chicago. Let me take you back. Chicago, I was at a convention. And I was actually just out, like, actually having dinner with people, which was really fun, but it was a little bit loud in there. And I was laughing and just having a good time. Anyway, I got back to the hotel. I'm in the lobby having a glass of water. I was like, oh, my voice is just a little scratchy. And then the next morning I woke up and it was scratchier. So I had my coconut water and some avocado and, and then, this is a long story to answer this, but I got bumped up to first class on the way home, which is really exciting for me. So I'm there and you get free wine. So I was like, I'll have a glass of wine. Like, this is so exciting. But by the end of the flight, I could barely say thank you as I'm handing my empty glass back to the stewardess. And I was like, this is really odd. And so I waited a day or two thinking, it'll come back. And I went to my otolaryngologist and he said, you have a vocal hemorrhage. You have to go on vocal rest. You can't speak for 2 weeks at all. And of course I had to go to a convention the next weekend. So for that, I treated it like a bruise, and I took a lot of vitamins and other things that can help heal a bruise. And I healed quickly, but I wasn't supposed to speak at all. And that's a really hard thing to do when you have stuff and you as an actor can be replaced like that. So you do have to really take care of yourself. Sometimes, because I live in LA, it's much drier there, and I do have vocal loss more than I did in New York. This is great that it's raining here. I think I need moisture as a person. But it's a big problem, and you have to, like, I'm not out in places that are very loud a lot. It does kind of cut your social life a little bit. And you have to just eat food that's good for you and stay in shape and stuff like that, try to avoid colds. But it has affected me, but not so much. I've been able to avoid that. But that was a big thing. It's my big story. I think I should be bumped up to first class more just to prove that, that it's not first class.
When you first started Pokemon series, I guess surpass your expectations of when it started to see everyone's emotional connections and everything towards it from what you were, all right, cool, I get to be a character, and all of a sudden you just see everyone's ties to it.
Right, so when we first started Pokemon, we had no idea it would go anywhere. And certainly the fact that it went on, and then every year it would get renewed, and then to what you're saying, to be able to come to conventions and see how emotionally connected everyone is to it and how emotionally connected we all were to the show. But this is the it's been 20 years since we started that first episode. And it's incredible to grow up with people who've seen the show. I went to my first convention in 2004 in New Zealand and Australia, and I was recently back in New Zealand, and I saw a kid that I saw in 2004, and I saw two boys who now are grown up, and they brought their kids. That's an amazing thing to have this, that we've grown up together, and that we've all been able to come together in these conventions, which serve such a bigger purpose anyway, but to talk about these things that we love, and then we have our friendship starts here, and then we can see it growing. That's been incredible for me, and to see how a show could touch people so deeply. I think that's pretty incredible, and I don't know that they necessarily intended that when they first started a cartoon, which was really going to be an ad for a game. You know what I mean? I think, yeah.
Okay, because you have a daughter that's in college, any advice for parents who have smaller children, like about when their kids grow up?
Don't ever let them out of the house. Did I say that out loud? I think okay, this is me as a mother who struggles with this, but our point as adults, whether they're your children or someone else's, is to be able to enable them to be the best that they can be. And I think it calls upon us to be listeners and to listen to children, and then we listen to teenagers, and then we listen to adults, because everyone needs to know that they are heard. I think that's the first thing. Spending time with kids is great. Spending time with your family, doing what you can do, because we all work, we all have to figure out how to get this together, but your kids are home for such a short amount of time in the grand scheme that I'm lucky that I was able to go on field trips and do all of that stuff and really spend time with my daughter and my nieces and my nephew, and that's been fantastic, because now when they're older, we still get along and we do have things to talk about. But ultimately, we, just like Pokemon, you cannot force them to evolve. It all happens in their own time. And I think as adults who are still somewhat evolving, we have to be aware of the fact that we're there to help and just bring out the best in them and help them to figure out what their path is. It's really hard. Being a parent is the hardest job anyone ever has. And it's okay to admit that and then figure out how to make it work. That's all I can say.
I agree.
Yeah,
It's simple.
it's really hard, and there's nothing more joyful and there's nothing more difficult, and it's everything in between. But God, how lucky. Definitely. I think that's the only thing. We all just have to listen and kind of be around as much as we can. I hope that's enough for that.
No, it's wonderful.
Good luck. Good luck.
I need it, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. I only have one, so it's easy enough for that. Plus, it's harder.
Of all the places that you've done conventions, where was your favorite?
You know, I actually love being in Hot Springs. This is a really cool town. I'm also a huge rock collector, so knowing that we're in the biggest kind of crystal bed in the United States or whatever is like electrifying to me. I've had a great time here. I wish I could go out in a cave and dig out some crystals, but I should have brought an extra suitcase to do that and some extra time. But I think that there's a very special feeling here that I haven't encountered in other places. That from seeing the costume contest last night, the level of creativity here is incredible. Every person I've talked to in town, I'm only in this historic area, has been extraordinary. So chatty, so nice. It's been really great. So this is one of my favorite places, for sure. Yeah.
First, I want to say thank you so much for saying such nice things about Arkansas. As someone who's lived here my whole life, I never hear things like that.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I've just bought all these shirts that say Arkansas, so I will be definitely advertising for you for a long time. Most of them are coffee related and beer related, so whatever.
Well, the football team's not doing so hot, so I don't know if I should get a shirt for them.
I can't do that. I can't do sports teams because I have to only pick one. I went between the Red Sox and the Yankees for a while, and that threw my family into chaos, so I know. So I'll just keep to my own sports teams, but your coffee places are really good here.
My major question was, you said earlier that's how it started out as a show that was just to sell toys.
I think
There
so.
are people who still view it as that, and who will say, oh, it's just some crappy show to sell toys. How do you feel about that? Because to me, Pokemon is probably like my favorite thing, and I know it's probably a lot of other people. So how do you feel about people who just look at it that way and don't like it?
I think that's fine. You know, the thing is, there's so much to watch, and there's so much to kind of give yourself over to for a half hour or an hour, and whatever world you want to live in for that time, that's yours to decide. Everyone is not gonna like everything. I think we, working on Pokemon, we committed to that show as a real world. And so that's all we could do. And if someone doesn't like it, I think that's fine. Honestly, I'm not offended, certainly, by that. I do think it probably started out to be just an ad. And because, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's all about how to play the card game, at least Pokemon was allowed to have some heart. And I think we, and the writers especially, really worked to bring a little bit more to it. But yes, I love it for the emotion and on the connection it allows. But I think I'm not offended, certainly. And I think it's fine if people don't like it. But I think it's bad if they say it to you when you're like, I love that show, and they're like, it's trash. I think that's a little rude. But I think we all need to speak kindly to one another. Does that mean we're done since you joined me back here?
Done, unfortunately.
You're so brave to come back here again. But you guys, thank you so much. I just want to say, Spock on! I choose you! I'm at my table. If any more questions come out, really seriously, thank you for an incredible weekend that I've had here. And I hope to see you all again here or somewhere else in the world.